lens video. I'm actually away at the moment, hence the different backdrop. This week we're looking at the Speedmasters by a lens company that you might not have heard of. They're called Sony E optics. The Speedmasters are T1 cine lenses suitable for Super 35 cameras, and it's quite interesting because these released just a couple of weeks after the Sony Nightwalkers, which were also very fast Super 35 cine lenses, both sitting very firmly within a sort of affordable budget cine lens category. These will retail at around $400, $500 each. Obviously, if you buy them as a set, you'll make a few savings there. And these lenses are available in a 20mm, a 35mm, and a 50mm. I obviously was shooting with them on my Komodo. Unlike the Nightwalkers, these lenses are a little bit heavier, a little bit bigger. They're built a little bit more like traditional cine lenses, I'd say. The housing is a bit more similar to the Vespids than it is to the Nightwalkers, and I think I prefer them for that. They just feel like they're a bit more chunky in the hand and a bit more substantial, and the overall build just feels a little bit more solid. It's not perfect, and I do have a few concerns about the build quality, which we'll get onto later. But let's get into the image quality of these lenses and how they stack up. Generally, I'd say the Speedmasters fall into the vintage S category of budget lenses. Similar to the Nightwalkers, they're not optically perfect. They don't render images like modern still lenses or Sigma cine primes. But, despite that, I really enjoyed my time shooting with these lenses. I prefer shooting on lenses that do have a bit of character, a bit of personality. I think I enjoyed the experience of shooting with them a little bit more than I did the Nightwalkers. I think I preferred the image quality of these lenses. I'd say the sweet spot that I found was around T2.0 and above. I think at that point you were getting the best balance between the fast aperture and optical performance. Below that T-stop, they do become a bit more funkier, a bit more grungier. And I think if you are buying these expecting to shoot all the time at T1.0, then you should sort of manage your expectations a bit. At T1 1.0, the lenses are a lot softer, they're a bit more ghosty and hazy. They tend to lose contrast and sharpness in the center relative to the higher T-stops. You also get pretty noticeable chromatic aberration, especially at T1.0. This appears mostly as sort of magenta purple fringing around areas of high contrast, which you can see here in terms of Steph's baseball cap. As you stop down, to T1.2, T1.4, this does begin to clean up quite quickly. By the time you get to T2.0, like I said earlier, I think you've got a really nice balance between the optical quality and performance of these lenses with really good sharpness and a bit more control over stuff like that chromatic aberration. Flaring with these lenses is also pretty interesting. It's not very controlled, as you can see here. It's quite prominent in the frame. I got some pretty crazy rainbow flares, which, to be honest, I didn't really mind. I quite like them. But whether you find that interesting or annoying or distracting is personal preference. And if I was working on a client job, then I might be a little bit more wary of characteristics like this. But like I said, I think, if you're shooting at T2 or above, the sharpness of these lenses is really good. It's not hitting levels like the Sigma cine lenses, but it's pretty respectable for lenses at this budget level. I'd say that they are a little bit sharper than the Nightwalkers. There's not miles apart between them. Another thing I like about the Speedmasters over the recent Sony Nightwalkers is their minimum focus distance. And just for reference here, you can see on screen the minimum focus distance of each of these focal lengths. It means you can just be a lot more responsive, you can move around with your camera a lot, you don't have to always have in the back of your mind this limitation, and it just means you're a lot more free to get the shots that you want to get. Overall, I like the build quality of these lenses. They're built and constructed like proper cine lenses. They're very similar in terms of their housing and shape and builds and form factor to my DZO film Vespid lenses. One of the things I found that was quite frustrating was the focal length labels on these lenses. On the Vespids, they're in a white font and they're very large and easy to see from a distance and quickly identify the focal lengths you want. With these lenses, they're in a very tiny yellow font on the side of the lens, and it doesn't immediately make it easy to identify the different focal lengths across the set. the fact that when you put the lens cap on the lens, it then obscures the focal length label. It's a very small detail, and it's, you know, it's not one that's going to fundamentally change your experience of using these lenses. Another thing I do want to highlight is that I was sent a set of 3 lenses to test by the manufacturer, but unfortunately the 50mm of this set malfunctioned and it seemed to be broken on arrival. The issue I had was that the aperture ring on that lens, it was sort of really clunky and grainy, and I quickly realized that it just wasn't engaging like the others. I'm sure this is due to the fact that these are pre-production units and that there are still working out the sort of like issues in the production line, but I'd kind of be remiss if I didn't bring that up. But apart from that, the rest of the handling of these lenses was generally excellent. Friction on these focus rings is perfect, as is the aperture ring, which is just a little bit more tighter, has a little bit more friction, as it should do. In terms of consistency across the lenses, all the rings are in the same places, stuff like that. In terms of the image consistency across the set, again, rendering and color, they all seem to match pretty well. I did notice, similar to the Nightwalkers, that the wider focal length of 20mm did run perhaps a little bit warmer than the other 2 focal lengths. I genuinely had a lot of fun shooting with these lenses, and that's a really good sign that I wanted to keep shooting with them, you know, beyond capturing enough footage for this review video. And as a result, I actually took these lenses out on 3 different shoot days to capture footage for this review. I shot with them a lot more than I did with the Nightwalkers because I just enjoyed the image I got with them. And I think out of the set, I found that the 35mm quickly became my sort of go-to lens, the lens that I reach for the most. Which is interesting because with the Sirui Nightwalkers, it was the wider focal length, I think it was a 24mm, that became my favorite. And I think the main reason for that probably is to do with the improved minimum focus on the Speedmasters, which just allowed me to get these sort of really lovely, beautiful close-up shots of Steph. And then just be a little bit more bolder and freer with my camera, which is what I like to do. So I think these lenses have a lot going for them. And me personally, I would probably consider these over the Nightwalkers. I think also the handling of these lenses, because they are a bit larger, they feel a little bit more like cine lenses relative to the slightly smaller Sureis. They have slightly larger front diameters, which is better for fitting matte boxes and stuff on. Overall, I think these lenses are incredible value for money. I had a lot of fun with them. Make sure you check out everyone else's videos and reviews across YouTube. I hope you found this video useful. If you have any questions about these lenses, drop them down in the comments down below. I'm Ed Prosser, and until next time, see ya!